They demanded hand over my dream car to my golden brother, then destroyed it when I refused. It took me 10 years. 10 years of saving every bonus, skipping every vacation, driving that dented Civic until it could barely make it up a hill, just to get this car, my '69 Camaro. It wasn't just a car, it was the car. Midnight blue, chrome wheels, restored down to the last bolt. The kind of car that makes you feel like you're in a movie every time you slide behind the wheel. I picked it up last week, cash in hand, heart pounding like I was on a first date. I parked it in the driveway and just sat there, listening to the low, throaty purr of the engine. I felt like I'd finally arrived. Of course, I expected my family would be impressed. At least smile. Instead, the first thing out of my dad's mouth was, "You're not keeping that, are you?" Like I dragged a dead raccoon onto the lawn. My mom clucked her tongue, arms crossed like I'd come home with a tattoo that said I hate my family. The kicker? They weren't mad I bought a car. They were mad I didn't buy it for my brother. Diego, 4 years younger, unemployed, calls himself an entrepreneur because he posts motivational quotes on Instagram and talks about building a personal brand while sitting around in sweatpants all day. Apparently, he's working on a startup that hasn't moved past the vague idea phase in 3 years. According to my parents, he needs the Camaro to project the right image. I thought they were joking. I laughed. They didn't. "You already have a car," Mom said. "A reliable one," Dad added, like reliability was some kind of flaw. Diego stood there, arms folded like some kind of goddamn prince, not saying a word, just waiting for me to do the generous big brother thing and hand him the keys. The same guy who bailed on every job he's ever had, who once asked me for rent money and then spent it on a drone. That guy. My mom said, "You don't need a flashy car. But your brother, he could use the confidence boost." I looked at them like they'd lost their minds. I saved for this. For 10 years. I did this for me. And my dad goes, "You're not a kid anymore, Jasper. It's time you thought about your family." Like I haven't been thinking about this family my whole damn life. Like I didn't help Diego move 3 times in 2 years. Like I wasn't the one who co-signed his student loans. Like I haven't been the responsible one since I was old enough to pick up a broom. They said I was being selfish. I wanted to scream. But instead, I walked to the Camaro, slid in behind the wheel, and started the engine. That low growl, that deep vibration through the seat, it grounded me. Reminded me that I'd earned this. Every long shift, every dollar saved, every weekend spent fixing up someone else's junker instead of going out. That sound was mine. They can keep their guilt trips and their disappointment. I kept the car. The next morning it started slow, one missed call from my mom around 7:42 a.m., which I ignored because I already knew what it was about. Then a text from my dad. "We need to talk. Urgently." That one I left unread. But by noon it was like someone hit a switch. Calls from Aunt Laura, who I hadn't spoken to since she got drunk at Diego's graduation and called me the joyless brother. A voicemail from Uncle Rick in Florida, telling me I should think about what kind of legacy I want to leave in the family. Legacy. Like I was denying Diego a kidney, not a set of keys. By the time I got home from work, my phone looked like it had been in a car crash. Dozens of texts, missed calls, WhatsApp messages, even 2 emails, actual emails, from relatives I barely knew existed. All of them singing the same song. Be a good brother. Think of Diego's future. Don't let selfishness ruin your family. One of my cousins, the one who used to steal lunch money in middle school and now sells essential oils on Facebook, sent a voice note. "Hey man, I heard you got a new car. That's awesome, congrats. But, I just think it would mean a lot to Diego if you could let him use it for a bit. You know how hard it's been for him. He's trying to build something. It's about the bigger picture, bro." The bigger picture? What picture? I didn't see anyone offering to help when I was living off ramen and biking to work in the rain because my Civic's alternator died and I couldn't afford to fix it. Funny how the bigger picture only comes into focus when someone wants something from you. My dad called again around dinner. When I picked up, he didn't even say hello. Just started in with this low, disappointed tone, like he was giving me a lecture for failing a test in high school. "I'm really struggling to understand your attitude here, Jasper. Your brother needs help, and you're sitting on a toy car you barely drive. You're 30, for God's sake." I told him I wasn't giving Diego the Camaro. I said it clearly, firmly, like I was telling a toddler no more screen time. There was silence on the line for a few seconds. Then he sighed, this heavy theatrical sigh, and said, "All right, if that's the kind of man you want to be." That night, I blocked 3 numbers, muted the family group chat, and tried to ignore the creeping anxiety curling in my stomach like a bad meal. But the next morning, it got worse. My mom showed up. I opened the door, and there she was, standing on my porch with that look, the one that could make a Sunday school teacher weep. She didn't yell, didn't plead. She just looked at me like I'd kicked a puppy and said, "You really think this is the right choice, Jasper?" I told her yes. I told her it was my car, my money, my decision. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. She just looked at me like I was a stranger and said, "You'll regret this." Then she got in her car and drove off, leaving me standing there with the weight of that sentence pressing on my chest like a boot. I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't stolen anything, or lied, or hurt anyone. I'd just decided, for once, not to hand over something I worked for. But in my family, that was enough to make me the villain. Diego texted me 2 days after the siege started. Just said, "Can we talk?" No guilt, no drama, just those 3 words. I agreed, mostly because I wanted to hear him say it to my face. That this wasn't about some noble business dream or family pride. That it was exactly what I thought it was, selfish, petty, and entitled. We met at that diner off 4th, the one we used to go to when we were kids after school. He showed up in joggers and sunglasses, looking like someone who hadn't gotten out of bed before noon in months. He didn't even order anything, just sat down across from me and looked uncomfortable in that way Diego always does when he's about to admit something but still wants to come off cool. "I get it, man," he said after a minute. "You worked hard for the car. I'm not trying to disrespect that." I didn't say anything, just waited. "But you gotta understand, they've been all over me too," he went on. "Mom's been crying. Dad's calling me every hour. They keep saying it's time I step up, and this would be the first step. And your first step is my car," I said. He shrugged like that was the most normal thing in the world. "Look, it's not about the car, not really. It's about the image. I've been trying to build this whole personal brand thing, and you know how it is. Looks matter. People don't want to follow some guy with nothing going on. A Camaro gets attention. It's clean, it's got that vibe. It's content." He said it like it was obvious, like we were talking about a camera tripod or a ring light. I stared at him, trying to keep my face calm, but something inside me twisted so hard I thought I'd choke on it. "You know I saved for 10 years, I said. 10 years. Every side job, every skipped trip, every night I spent watching other people live while I was cutting back, just so I could make this happen. You know that, right?" "Yeah, but you've got a good job now," he said, like that erased everything. "You could buy another one, probably even better. This one, it's just a car. It's just a car." That's what he said, like it was a pair of sneakers or a blender. Not the thing I dreamed about since I was 16. Not the thing I used to print pictures of and tape to my bedroom wall. Not the one thing that made all those years of working dead-end shifts and living below my means feel worth it. To him, it was just a tool, a prop, a way to make strangers think he was something more than what he was. I finished my coffee, stood up, and looked at him one last time. He gave me this half-apologetic, half-smirking look, like he still thought maybe I'd changed my mind. I didn't say anything. I just walked out, let the door slam behind me. Let him sit there with his influencers and his image and his easy-come, easy-go attitude. For him, it was just a car. For me, it was everything he'd never understand. It was Sunday afternoon when my phone rang again, just as I was coming back from a drive. I'd taken the Camaro up the old coastal road, windows down, engine purring, just me and the sea breeze and a road that didn't ask questions. I'd almost managed to forget the chaos. But the second I saw my mom's name on the screen, that calm evaporated like it had never existed. I thought about letting it go to voicemail, but I picked up. Her voice was cold, not angry, not emotional, just clipped, like she was reading off a script. "Your father and I have made a decision." There was a pause. I waited for her to continue, but she didn't. I could hear the clink of dishes in the background, like she was calling from the kitchen, just handling business between chores. "What decision?" I asked. "We've decided how to move forward," she said. "Since you've made your stance very clear. That I'm keeping my car?" I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "Yeah, that's clear." She didn't take the bait. "This isn't just about a car, Jasper. It's about what kind of person you've chosen to be. You've made your priorities known, and now we'll make ours." "Are you serious right now?" I said, already feeling that creeping tension crawl back up my spine. "We're not going to argue with you anymore," she said. "You'll see what comes of this. And when it does, remember, you chose this." Then she hung up. No threats, no raised voices. Just those words, clean and final like a door slamming shut. I stood there in my driveway, phone still in hand, heart thudding like I'd just been slapped. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe another round of guilt, maybe some last-ditch plea. But not that. Not whatever that was. I told myself it was nothing. Just another bluff. Another play in their long-running campaign to get their way. They'd try to make me feel bad, maybe rope in a few more relatives, post some vague, guilt-tripping nonsense online. I told myself they were just blowing smoke. I had no idea how wrong I was. It was Thursday morning, just past 7, and the sky was that soft pale gray that makes you think the day might still go okay. I was heading out for work, coffee in hand, half awake, not expecting anything more than the usual traffic and maybe a dead battery in the office printer. I walked to the garage like I always did, hitting the button to lift the door with that little flick of anticipation I still felt every time I saw the Camaro sitting there, sleek and perfect, like a reward made real. But the second the door rolled up, I knew something was wrong. The air hit me first, this strange, metallic tang, sharp and sour, like blood and burnt rubber. Then my eyes adjusted to the dim light, and everything inside me just stopped. The paint was ruined, scratched deep, jagged lines carved into the body like someone had taken keys or nails or God knows what and dragged them across every inch of that midnight blue finish. The tires were slashed, deflated and torn like they'd been clawed by an animal. The windshield, cracked in a spiderweb explosion, a brutal impact right in the center, like a fist or worse. And the hood was caved in, not once, not twice, but over and over, like someone had taken a sledgehammer to it with the kind of rage that only stops when arms go numb. It didn't feel real at first. I stood there in the doorway, garage door still grinding to a halt above me, just staring. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped the coffee without even noticing, the cup shattering against the concrete and splashing lukewarm bitterness across my shoes. I didn't need to ask who did it. The answer was right there, tucked under the wiper like a receipt from hell. A small, folded note, lined paper, my mother's handwriting unmistakable even after all these years of grocery lists and birthday cards. Maybe next time you'll remember that family comes first. Mom and Dad. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Just that. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stood there, staring at the car like it was a body at a crime scene. Because in a way it was. 10 years of work. 10 years of saving, planning, dreaming, gone. Not stolen. Not lost. Destroyed. Deliberately. By the people who raised me. It wasn't just a car. And they knew that. That's what made it worse. I didn't even know I had called Alice until she picked up and asked if I was okay. My voice must have been shaking, or maybe I was just quiet for too long. But she said she was coming over before I even finished explaining. When she arrived and saw the car, she stopped in the driveway, eyes wide, one hand covering her mouth. Then she turned to me and said, "You need to call the police." I hesitated. My parents. This wasn't some stranger. This wasn't a break-in. This was them. But she didn't flinch. "Jasper," she said, looking me dead in the eye. "This isn't about pride or family or what they meant to you. This is vandalism. It's a crime. You need to treat it like one." So I did. I called the police. They arrived within the hour, 2 officers, polite but clearly caught off guard by what they were looking at. I handed them the note without saying a word. They bagged it immediately, gloved hands and sealed plastic, like it was some kind of evidence in a murder case. One of them walked slowly around the car, whistling under his breath as he took pictures. The other asked me if I had any idea who could have done it. I told them. They didn't even try to hide their surprise. "Your parents did this?" he asked, voice steady but eyes flickering with something between disbelief and pity. "Yeah," I said. "They left a note. The report was filed. Photos taken. Statements made." I had to repeat the whole story more than once, and each time I said it, it felt less like something that had happened to me and more like a nightmare I was trying to wake up from. The insurance adjuster came out the next day. I watched from the porch as he walked around the Camaro, shaking his head like a doctor breaking bad news. The damage was extensive, scratches deep into the metal, structural dents to the hood, shattered glass. All 4 tires destroyed. Restoration would cost more than the car was worth. Total loss. That phrase hit harder than I expected. It wasn't just a number on a sheet. It was a verdict. It was final. My dream car gone. Destroyed by the people who were supposed to be proud of me. A week later, I got the call. They had confessed. My parents. They admitted to it. Said it was an act of desperation, that they didn't know what else to do. The officer's voice was professional, but I could tell even he didn't know how to frame it properly. They were being charged with criminal damage to property. Felony level. I hung up the phone and sat in silence for a long time. Not because I was angry, not even because I was sad, but because in that moment, it hit me that the people who raised me, who helped me with homework, who taught me how to ride a bike, who showed up at my graduation, had looked at everything I worked for and still decided it was worth destroying. And now, they were going to answer for it. Not in family therapy, not in some awkward Thanksgiving conversation, but in court. Court day felt like stepping into someone else's life. The suit I wore didn't feel like mine. The courtroom smelled like old paper and nervous sweat. My parents sat at the defense table, dressed like they were going to church, heads slightly bowed, the picture of remorse. You'd think they'd run over a neighbor's mailbox, not obliterated their son's dream with a sledgehammer. Their lawyer went first, painting them as victims of emotional strain, the fallout of a family misunderstanding. He said words like overwhelmed and lapse in judgment, and tried to spin the note as a misguided expression of frustration. They weren't criminals, he argued. They were parents caught in the chaos of familial conflict. My mother even dabbed her eyes at one point. My father looked blank, like he was waiting for someone to rescue him. When it was my turn to speak, I stood in front of the judge with my heart thudding like it was trying to get out. I didn't read from notes. I didn't need to. I told the court about saving every spare dollar since I was 20. About skipping trips, living below my means, driving a junker that coughed smoke in winter. Also, I could restore that Camaro. I told them about my dad teaching me how to change oil in the driveway, about how I used to dream about that car when I was a teenager. I told them how it wasn't about the metal or the paint or the engine. It was about what it represented. A decade of discipline, sacrifice, pride, and they destroyed it like it was garbage. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. Not because of shock, because there was nothing to say. The judge didn't smile, didn't offer sympathy. He just looked at my parents like he saw right through the performance. Then he read the sentence. 18 months suspended, 200 hours of community service, and $64,500 in restitution, to be paid in monthly installments under court supervision. They were also prohibited from contacting me directly. If they wanted to speak to their son, it had to be through a lawyer. I walked out of the courtroom with the weight still sitting in my chest, but at least now it had a name. Accountability. I bought a new Camaro, a 2020 SS, black with red interior, low miles, pristine. The engine's a beast, the ride smooth, the tech light years ahead of what I had in the 69. On paper, it's better in almost every way. But when I turn the key, there's no thrill in my chest. No flutter. Just a low hum and the reminder that this isn't the car I spent 10 years chasing. That one's gone, and you can't replace a decade of sacrifice with something that comes off a lot in perfect condition. I still park it in the garage, still wipe it down on Sundays, still nod when neighbors say nice ride. But it's not the same. It never will be. My parents have a criminal record now. They're paying off debt with interest. I heard they had to sell one of their retirement accounts early. I don't know if they still think they were right, or if they've convinced themselves it was worth it somehow. We haven't spoken since the trial. The last words I heard from them were scrawled in ink beneath a wiper blade. I live in a small house now, just outside the city. Nothing flashy. 2 bedrooms, a modest backyard, a quiet street. I adopted a rescue dog, a pit mix with a crooked ear and the personality of a lazy detective. His name is Bishop, and he follows me everywhere. I work, I cook, I sit on the porch with a drink and let the world pass without asking much of it. There's peace here. Not the joyful kind, but the kind that comes after surviving something that should have broken you. It's a hard-won stillness, edged with bitterness. But it's mine, and maybe that's enough.